أعزائي المشاهدين في كل مكان، أسعد الله أوقاتكم بالخير والبركات، وأهلا ومرحبا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من برنامجكم الأسبوعي مال وأعمال. نسلط الضوء في هذه الحلقة على العلاقات الأردنية الأمريكية خصوصا من الناحية الاقتصادية. من المعلوم أن الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية من أكبر الدول المانحة للمملكة، سواء بشكل مباشر لخزينة الدولة أو على شكل ضمانات قروض، وهذه لها إسهامات كبيرة في دعم الإصلاحات الاقتصادية، وتعد نموذجا للتعاون الدولي، خصوصا عندما يتصل الموضوع في دعم الأردن على تحمل جزء من أعباء استضافة اللاجئين السوريين في المملكة. للحديث عن علاقات المملكة مع الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، يسرنا أن نستضيف السفيرة الأمريكية لدى المملكة السيدة أليس ويلز. You are welcome, most welcome.
Thank you very much.
أعزائي المشاهدين، قبل أن نخوض في تفاصيل حلقة هذه الليلة، نتابع معا تقرير ميداني أعده الزميل يوسف المشاق.
العلاقات الأردنية الأمريكية لها أهمية سياسية واقتصادية من شأنها أن تسهم في تعزيز فرص التعاون الاقتصادي والاستثماري ما بين البلدين، وبما يعود بالفائدة على مصلحة الشعبين الصديقين.
الولايات المتحدة هي السوق الأكبر في العالم، وعلاقتنا مع الولايات المتحدة اليوم هي علاقة مميزة جدا، وهي في أحسن حال كانت عليه عبر التاريخ منذ البداية. مما زاد هذه العلاقة متانة هو المعاهدة التجارة الحرة أو اتفاقية التجارة الحرة ما بين البلدين التي وقعت قبل حوالي 12 عاما. هاي الاتفاقية رفعت من مستوى التبادل التجاري الأردني من رقم متواضع جدا 300 مليون دينار، معظمه كان باتجاه أمريكا للأردن، إلى ما يقارب 3 بلايين أو 3 مليارات دولار. والأهم من هذا أنه في تكافؤ أو توازن تجاري. حتى الشهر الماضي حتى كان الميزان في كفة الأردن، في صالح الأردن. نحن بحاجة إلى أصدقاء، والسوق الأمريكي كونه الشريك الأكبر والذي يعني عنده أو حائز على القدر الأكبر من حصة التبادل التجاري مع أي دولة بما فيه دول المنطقة وأوروبا إلى آخره، يعني مفيد جدا للأردن في مثل هذا الوقت من الزمان.
السوق الأمريكاني حوالي 300 مليون شخص. يعني الشركات الأردنية ممكن عندها فرصة كتير كبيرة إنها تصدر للولايات المتحدة عوضا عن الهند، لأنه إحنا نقدر نحط باللغة العربية، وهي اللغة التي إلها مستقبل كبير الآن وبتنافس. الأردن اليوم عندها بيئة استثمارية ممتازة، إحنا في موقع متوسط نقدر نكون مدخل إلى الوطن العربي، وممكن للشركات الأمريكانية تيجي على الأردن تستثمر بمجال تكنولوجيا المعلومات، ونكون إحنا البيئة الوسطى بين الأمريكان والوطن العربي عشان نقدر نصدر هذه الطاقات الموجودة عندنا بالأردن.
ولعل المساعدات المقدمة من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية للأردن لتنفيذ بعض المشاريع الخدمية والتنموية في بعض مناطق المملكة لا إشارة واضحة على هذا الدعم والمساهمة في تحقيق التنمية المستدامة والشاملة.
الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية هي شريك اقتصادي للأردن، وتقدم حكومة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية مساعدات مالية ومساعدات فنية ومساعدات عسكرية حكومة المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية. ومن ضمن هذه المساعدات ما يقدم أيضا لقطاع المياه والصرف الصحي من خلال وزارة المياه والري. سنويا تقدم الحكومة الأمريكية من خلال الوكالة الأمريكية للماء الدولي مشاريع لقطاع المياه والصرف الصحي تقريبا بحدود 50 مليون دولار أمريكي. تذهب هذه الأموال جميعها لإعادة تأهيل محطات الضخ كما شاهدنا هذا اليوم، أو لإعادة تأهيل محطات تنقية الصرف الصحي كما هو الحال في محطة تنقية جرش ومحطة تنقية الطفيلة. وأيضا هنالك مشاريع لإعادة تأهيل شبكات المياه كما كان في عمان وفي العقبة وبعض المناطق الأخرى، من حيث تقديم مشاريع فنية وتنموية لوزارة المياه والري.
يذكر أن تطور العلاقات ما بين البلدين الصديقين ستساعد في استمرارية وتوثيق التعاون لجذب المزيد من الاستثمارات ولخدمة الاقتصاد الوطني. والعلاقات الأردنية الأمريكية مستمرة والتي تزداد قوة ومتانة من خلال التبادل التجاري ما بين البلدين وجذب المزيد من المشاريع الاستثمارية والتنموية لتعود بالنفع على مصالح البلدين والشعبين الصديقين. يوسف المشاقبة، التلفزيون الأردني، لبرنامج مال وأعمال.
أعزائي المشاهدين، أهلا بكم من جديد. سعادة السفيرة، الحقيقة أنه يمتاز الأردن والولايات المتحدة بعلاقات اقتصادية متينة تعمقت خلال العقد الماضي بعد توقيع اتفاقية الشراكة بين الأردن، اتفاقية التجارة الحرة بين الأردن والولايات المتحدة. من وجهة نظرك ما هي أبرز العوامل التي تؤثر في العلاقات بين البلدين؟
Well, thank you, Fike, for the opportunity to appear on your show and to explain in greater detail what is a terrific economic relationship between the United States and Jordan. America's relationship with Jordan is one of the most important in the region, and the intensity of contacts between our leaders underscores the importance of this special relationship, as well as Jordan's role in the Middle East. In addition to the high-level contacts that we see between President Obama and His Majesty King Abdullah, I think since I've arrived in Jordan, we've had more than 200 members and staff members of Congress visit, in addition to 100 senior U.S. officials. And these include officials like Secretary of Agriculture Vilsack, who come here specifically to try to strengthen our economic cooperation. Thanks to His Majesty's vision of economic liberalization and thanks to America's commitment to promoting joint prosperity between our countries, I believe that we have all the tools we need to continue to grow our economic relationship. If you recall, it was shortly after His Majesty came to power in 1999 that Jordan joined the World Trade Organization in 2000. In 2001, we negotiated the Free Trade Agreement, the Bilateral Free Trade Agreement, which, by the way, is only one of 5 bilateral FTAs in the region. And then in 2003, the U.S.-Jordanian Bilateral Investment Treaty came into force. And with these, I want to call them foundational documents, you know, Jordan is really positioned to be a regional hub, a hub for regional trade. And we certainly saw the reaction from American companies. If you look at foreign direct investment in Jordan, American companies have invested about $2.2 billion, which is about 10% of the overall total. And among those companies are really some of our premier firms. I mean, just to give a few examples, AES, the U.S. power plant, was building and operating 2 power plants here at an investment of almost $700 million, producing about 20% of Jordan's electricity. Also, the Louisiana-based firm Albemarle has a $200 million investment in the Arab Bromine Company. But what we're also seeing are American firms positioning themselves to the broader market. So, for instance, back in November, I had an opportunity to visit the Coca-Cola plant in Madaba. And you know, the Coca-Cola investment is about $70 million. It employs 500 Jordanians, but it's meeting not only the demands of the Jordan market, but also of the neighboring countries. Same thing with the U.S. agricultural giant Cargill. They came here and initially made an investment of $15 million in Hamuda's agricultural feed business, and then liked what they saw so much, they increased the investment by another $25 million. So I think if we stand back and we look at the overall trade relationship, we've made extraordinary progress. In 2000, before the introduction of the FTA, less than 400 million. Today, over 3.4 billion. Jordanian exports this year to the United States increased 9%. And I think that really testifies to the durability and the versatility of the free trade agreement. And so I give credit to the FTA, I give credit to the efforts of the government, the Ministry of Industry and Trade, the private sector and chambers, and also to our efforts to spur trade missions back and forth between our countries. So I'm confident that Jordan is going to continue to emerge as an increasingly strong regional hub, and that American firms are going to look at Jordan, not just for Jordan's sake, but as a launching pad to the reconstruction of Syria, the reinvigoration of the Iraqi market. So there is tremendous potential here.
ممتاز. يعني نحن نتطلع في مجال الكهرباء وكان هناك استثمارات أمريكية كبيرة مثل ما ذكرتي حضرتك، خصوصا في موضوع المشروع الرابع والثالث ساهمت فيها شركات أمريكية، لكن نتطلع أكبر إلى دور أمريكي أكثر فيما يتعلق في مشاريع الطاقة المتجددة. هل سنشهد استثمارات أمريكية فيما يتعلق بالطاقة المتجددة سواء كانت الطاقة الشمسية أو طاقة الرياح؟
U.S. firms are playing a very important role in the expansion of the alternative energy market here in Jordan and in the diversification of the energy market. We all know the story that in 2011 with the Arab Spring, Jordan lost access to inexpensive natural gas from Egypt. It went from paying less than 4 cents a kilowatt hour to more than 23 cents a kilowatt hour, which ended up consuming about 20% of Jordan's GDP. It was unsustainable, and it's been an anchor around Jordan's neck. And so as a partner of Jordan, we've looked at ways to how we can help Jordan diversify. Jordan took, of course, the visionary step of launching the liquefied natural gas terminal, which as of this July is now producing 80% of Jordan's electricity. But Jordan's role in the alternative energy market has also attracted many American investors. AES is developing energy storage units here, which are going to allow solar and wind to be integrated into the national grid and represent the cutting edge of energy technology. The very well-known American solar power company, Sun System, is also investing $70 million in a 20 megawatt solar project in Ma'an, which will be the first solar project in Ma'an to be connected to the national grid. And then Noble Energy, the U.S. energy company, is exploring ways to bring inexpensive natural gas to Jordan, including through its project with the Arab Bromine Company, or the Jordan Bromine Company, and the Arab Potash Company. I expect, particularly in light of the historic climate agreement that we saw negotiated this week in Paris, that the race is on for the development of more efficient technologies. And I think Jordan is extremely well placed, both because of its science and technology base, but also because of the vast steps forward it's making in alternative energy. So this is a real moment of opportunity, and I'm confident American firms will be here to participate in it.
ممتاز. يعني سنعود إلى اتفاقية التجارة الحرة بين الأردن والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. صحيح أنه حجم التجارة تضاعف خلال العقد الأخير، لكن الأمر له شقين. الشق الأول شق تجاري، والشق الثاني الآخر هو شق استثماري. كيف تقيمين حجم التبادل التجاري حاليا، وما هي الفرص التي يتطلع لها القطاع الخاص الأمريكي للاستثمار من خلال الأردن إلى دول الجوار؟
Well, I think the benefits of the free trade agreement, as I outlined, are clear. Trade has increased dramatically from 400 million to 3.4 billion. The fact that Jordan was able to increase its exports to the United States when Jordanian exports overall declined 7% is further testimony of the strength of this document. I think that the free trade agreement has been a real two-way street for Jordanians and Americans. Jordanians have had access to cars and IT and food products. Americans have access to pharmaceuticals, textiles, jewelry, engineering services. I had the privilege of visiting Petra Engineering a few months ago and saw firsthand how they were producing air conditioning and heating units for Facebook's headquarters, as well as a school in my own home state of Washington.
Empire State.
Yes, and and I got to see firsthand the ingenuity of Jordanian business. So, but we're not interested just in the commercial flows. We're interested in the creation of jobs, and we think there have been about 50,000 jobs created, as well as the lifting of environmental and labor standards. But to your point, I think we do have homework to do on the free trade agreement. When I speak with Her Excellency Maha Ali, for instance, or with the Chambers of Industry and Chambers of Commerce, I often hear the concern that too much of Jordanian exports to the United States are concentrated in the textile sector. Approximately 80% of Jordanian exports are textiles, and it's an important sector. I've gone to a satellite center in Madaba where Jordanian women are producing Nike sportswear for export to the United States. But we don't have to stop there. We should be able to expand the sectors, and so we've worked very closely with the American Chamber of Commerce and with the Ministry and the other chambers of industry to try to lead education sessions to explain to businesses what's available under the FTA, but also to hear from them what they believe the obstacles are, and so how can we overcome them? Because while we're pleased with what we've accomplished under the FTA, we shouldn't rest on our laurels. And then I would say beyond the FTA, in this kind of climate of regional instability where Syria and Iraq have been closed off, we would like to work with Jordan more to be able to increase regional trade. And so we've looked at how trade can be increased between the West Bank and Jordan. And for instance, we're donating a scanner to King Hussein Bridge that will be able to facilitate container traffic. We've also looked at African states because Jordan geographically is in the right place to be a jumping board to Africa. And even American firms here see Africa as a market. So Philip Morris is already exporting to Africa. So I think that our agenda is not over. We have a very long agenda in terms of deepening our trade relationship.
هذا ما نتطلع له بالواقع، لكن في هذا الجانب هل هناك مزايا خاصة لخدمة رجال الأعمال الأردنيين سواء بالانتقال للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية من جهة وتمكينهم أيضا من الاستثمار في الولايات المتحدة أو إقامة شراكات بين مستثمرين أردنيين وأمريكيين؟
The U.S. welcomes foreign direct investment, and it's not just because of the economic benefits that it brings to the United States. It's because the economic relationships really buttress and build the political relationships and contribute to that strategic partnership. Thankfully, because of the bilateral investment treaty, we have what we need to be able to protect foreign direct investment, to encourage foreign direct investment, because the treaty is based on the principle that any Jordanian investor in the United States has the exact equal treatment of a U.S. investor. And the statistics already show its success. And there are tremendous dividends for a Jordanian firm investing in the United States. On the one hand, of course, they're creating jobs, they're making profits, they're increasing exports from Jordan to the U.S. But at the same time, they're also bringing back technology, management expertise, cultural understanding, access to new markets. And so, if you look, for instance, in September, I believe, His Majesty was in New Jersey for the opening of the expansion of Hikma's third pharmaceutical company in the U.S. And it's an extraordinary story. Hikma is the 6th largest producer of generic pharmaceuticals in the United States, hiring 2,500 workers. But I don't want to leave the impression that it's only big firms that can compete or can invest in the U.S. market. There's room for small and medium companies as well. And a good example is that one of the trade missions that we sent to Silicon Valley last year, there was a Jordanian internet application firm, development firm, What You Doing, and they were able to open an office in California, creating jobs both in America and in Jordan. And we know there are other firms, particularly in the construction and the food industry, that are eyeing America, and we stand ready to assist them. A premier event that I'd love to advertise on this show is our Select USA. It's this massive investment conference in America. President Obama chairs it. There are 6 cabinet secretaries. We took 5 Jordanian firms last year in March, and we hope to take a very strong delegation this year in June. Because basically, foreign direct investment is a no-brainer, as we like to say. It's a win-win outcome for both the U.S. and Jordan.
حقيقة نحن نقدر هذا الدور الأمريكي والإسهامات التي تقوم بها الحكومة الأمريكية للأردن، لكن ما هي القطاعات اللي يمكن أن تحظى باهتمام أكبر لدى المستثمر الأمريكي إلى جانب طبعا صناعة الأدوية وتصدير الأقمشة والمنسوجات؟ هل هناك قطاعات محددة يمكن أن تحظى باهتمام أكبر لدى المستثمر الأمريكي، خصوصا إذا ما نظرنا إلى الشركات الصغيرة والمتوسطة وبالذات في تكنولوجيا المعلومات؟
Well, I think information technology is definitely a sector that we're focusing attention on. Under the Jordan Competitiveness Project by USAID, it's the IT sector, clean energy, and healthcare that we identify as the sectors with the greatest potential for job creation and growth. And with respect to IT, we have well-established links between the Microsofts, Ciscos, and Googles of the world who have been working here through innovation centers and networking academies and other training initiatives to help develop Jordanian talent. We have accelerators, we have incubators, we have an agreement between Umnia and Silicon Valley's Plug and Play, we have Oasis 500. And as His Majesty said when he was in Silicon Valley last year, this sector has proven extraordinary for Jordan. From 1999, when it was incipient, to now, IT occupies 12% of Jordan's GDP. It's generated tens of thousands of jobs, and we estimate about 34% of those jobs are held by women who are attracted by the flexibility of the profession. So I think that, looking ahead, U.S. firms are going to be very interested in the IT sector here, both because of Jordan's stability, but also because of its talent pool. And so when I think we're very encouraged by the fact that there's now a REACH 2025, that Her Excellency Maj Shweika and Karim Kawar are again have a laser focus on the sector, which I think builds confidence that there'll be regulatory stability and a continued prioritization of the field. As well, under their leadership and under the leadership of the Ministry of Education, there's been a very healthy discussion of how to make sure that Jordan's education system is still producing the kinds of graduates who have already produced 75% of the Arabic language content on the internet. So absolutely, this is a sector that we want to focus on.
يعني حقيقة الخطة الاقتصادية والاجتماعية الأردنية ل 2025 نحن نبني أمال كبير عليها، لكن جزء مهم من مكونات هذه الخطة هو التعاون بين القطاع الخاص سواء كان الأردني والأجنبي وبالذات الأمريكي من ضمن هذه القطاعات. بوجهة نظرك كمتابعة للشأن الاقتصادي الأردني، ما هي أبرز التحديات التي يجب العمل على تجاوزها حتى أن نتمكن من أن نعظم الفائدة من المشاريع المشتركة التي تقام على أرض المملكة؟
I think there are, first I think if you look at Jordan's history, you have to be amazed by how many challenges Jordan has overcome. This has been a difficult region for a long period of time. And there are several challenges that are exogenous. They're outside of Jordan's control, but they're important. And then there are others where Jordan can undertake, policy reforms that will be extraordinarily helpful. I think in terms of the first challenge, it's energy. Establishing an affordable and uninterruptible supply of energy. As we discussed, Jordan took a huge hit, during Arab Spring that it's still coming out of with the first major step of the opening of the liquefied natural gas terminal. But tomorrow, for instance, I'm going to go down to the inauguration of the Jordan Wind Project, 117 megawatt wind farm in Tafila, which is already providing 3% of the nation's electricity. And in fact, when Jordan had that very freakish hot spell in July, the wind farm was able to provide some surge capacity to the grid that proved, extremely helpful. So already demonstrating the extraordinary benefits of alternative energy. So we're going to be committed to, continuing to play a role in that sector. I think the second challenge is just what the regional instability has wrought. The closure of the borders of Iraq and Syria, Jordan's traditional markets and traditional gateway to other markets. The loss of traditional tourism, all of which are beyond Jordan's control. I am confident, of course, that these borders are going to reopen in the future, and that Jordan is going to be extremely well placed to take advantage of the reconstruction and reinvigoration of Syria and Iraq, and that as it builds its tourist infrastructure now, and we've seen His Excellency Naif El-Fayez introduce a series of measures to provide inducements and incentives for the development of the sector, that Jordan's going to resume its rightful place. So I think in the interim, we want to partner with Jordan to find the alternative markets, and we want to partner like the West Bank and Africa, but we also want to partner with Jordan, again, to build the tourism sector. And so one of the interesting things we've done is create 14 vocational training centers that have produced 11,000 Jordanian graduates, for the hotel industry, essentially the five-star hotel industry. They're all snapped up, and these are dignified jobs, with dignified wages. The third challenge I would identify is, the regulatory challenge, which every country faces. And I think the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report sort of highlighted what we've heard from Jordanian and American businessmen and business people, and that is other countries have moved a little bit faster than Jordan in easing trade and investment. And so I had the opportunity back in August to meet with the chairman of the Jordanian Investment Commission, Dr. Okla, and he reviewed what is a very ambitious agenda to try to address some of these issues, whether it's registration or whether it's predictability of the tax and customs environment. And of course, His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Abdullah Ansur, who has played such a leadership role in economic reform, has personally taken up this issue. How do you address the shortcomings identified in this Ease of Doing Business report? So I'm confident that the government is going to tackle these discrete issues, and we'd like to play a helpful role where we can. I'll just give one example, the bankruptcy law, the draft bankruptcy law. Our experience in the United States is that for innovators to innovate and entrepreneurs to be entrepreneurial, they need to be able to fail. And sometimes they need to fail more than once. And so having a bankruptcy law that allows them to extricate themselves from a failed business is critical. So we look forward to continuing that conversation. I would say the final issue I would identify is, how do we tap the amazing talent of Jordanian women? And every day, I meet extraordinary women who are contributing to Jordan's economy and development, and whether they're cabinet ministers, entrepreneurs, academics, factory workers, they're involved in Jordan's development. But there are too few of them. And so while Jordan has made amazing strides in achieving education equity, more women are graduating from college than men. And Her Majesty, Queen Rania, is internationally renowned for everything that she has done to promote education. But how do we tap their intellectual horsepower, in the economy, where only 13% of Jordanian women are working? And that's a low figure, even by regional standards. This is a priority that His Excellency Ahmad Fakouri identified in the Jordan 2025 report. And, and I think government here can really be the role model. And so it is encouraging that steps have been taken to strengthen the Jordanian National Commission on Women, who can play sort of an advocacy role for gender equity. But I know from my own country's experience that it takes time to address a lot of the cultural issues. How do you balance work and family, child care, glass ceilings, pay comparability? These are all tough issues, transportation. But I met with a group of young women who are secondary school students, and they were terrific because they want everything. They want to be great mothers and they want to be professionals, and the sky is the limit. And I know that in my own experience, I'm the first woman of my generation and my family to go to college. And yet my children, my daughters, never questioned that they would go to college and work. And so change happens very quickly, and Jordanian women have so much to offer to Jordan, so we would certainly like to see that happen.
صحيح، احنا بنوجه تحية للمرأة الأردنية، هي الأخت والأم والشقيقة، واحنا ندرك أن مشاركة المرأة في قوى العاملة بالأردن هي من النسب المتدنية على مستوى المنطقة، لكن هذا ما تعمل عليه الحكومة الأردنية لتحسين صورة الأردن أو وضع الأردن في التقارير الدولية، وإلى جانب معايير أخرى تعمل عليها، وكان آخرها إطلاق شركة الخدمات الاستعلام الائتماني. هذه بالتعاون تمت مع البنك المركزي والآي اف سي، مؤسسة التمويل الدولية، وبالتالي قد تتحسن في الاجتماع المقبل، ستجدين بعض التحسن إن شاء الله في هذه المؤشرات. لكن سؤال لحضرتك، في ظل هذه الأوضاع والتحديات التي تواجه الأردن.
Could I add one more thing?
Sure.
No, because I think this is about dollars and cents. I mean, again, in my country, we have calculated that women's contribution to the economy, increasing contribution to the economy, has added $2 trillion over the last 45 years. So this really is sort of about an economic calculus. How do you get the investment out of these very talented and educated women? And so we too have programs, as you mean, like Takamul program under USAID, programs designed to give, to provide financing for women entrepreneurs. So I think this is an area we can very much work together.
Good. ممتاز جدا. لكن في ظل هذه التحديات والتحديات اللي تضيفها الأوضاع الإقليمية، هناك عبء كبير على الأردن. ما هو حجم المساعدات التي تمت في عام 2015 وما هي حجم المساعدات المتوقع بعام 2016؟ لكن الإجابة سنأخذها بعد الفاصل. أعزائي المشاهدين، فاصل وسنعود إليكم. أعزائي المشاهدين، أهلا بكم من جديد. سعادة السفيرة، كان سؤالنا قبل الفاصل عن حجم المساعدات الأمريكية للأردن. هل تراعي التحديات الإقليمية التي يفرضها الواقع علينا، وما هي التوقعات للمساعدات في العام المقبل؟
I'm proud of the fact that the United States is the single largest donor to Jordan. And as you mentioned in your introductory remarks, Deputy Prime Minister Judah and Secretary Kerry signed a 3-year, $3 billion memorandum of understanding that increased our annual assistance from $660 million to $1 billion a year. But in fact, we've probably contributed closer to $1.5 billion this year to Jordan, just given the nature of all of the challenges it has faced. And in addition to the MOU, we have the loan guarantees of almost $4 billion over the last 3 years, which have not only provided access to international financial markets, but have saved Jordan upwards, or will save Jordan approximately $670 million in interest payments over the course of the loans. I'd like to stand back just a moment and put the current assistance relationship in sort of the broader historical context, because for 6 decades we've had an extraordinary partnership in advancing mutual security and prosperity. And there are a few statistics that really jump out at me. One of them is that 75% of Jordanians have been born in clinics or hospitals that were constructed or renovated by USAID. And during that same period of time, maternal mortality declined by 50%, neonatal survival went up from 23% to almost 90%. These are extraordinary accomplishments. 70% of wastewater is treated at the Asamra wastewater facility, first constructed by USAID and now expanded by the Millennium Challenge Corporation. 2,000 classrooms are going to be built by USAID. And with the arrival of our new USAID director, Dr. Jim Barnhart, we're having an opportunity. He's traveling around Jordan to all the governorates with his team, along with representatives from the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation, to meet with local officials to make sure we understand their priorities and that we're all pulling in the same direction. Of course, the security cooperation has always been a bedrock of the bilateral relationship. And we estimate that this year we have contributed about $500 million to the modernization and the maintenance of the Jordanian armed forces. And what does this translate into? It translates into, all along the Iraq and Syria border, advanced radar surveillance technology now exists that allows the JAF to see every inch of Jordan's border, which is critical at this point in time. It translates into the lease and ultimately the purchase of 8 Black Hawk helicopters that are going to be the backbone of a quick reaction force. And it sends hundreds of Jordanian military personnel to the United States, which builds these personal relationships, which are so critical. But we recognize that more needs to be done because of the Syrian crisis and the burden it's placed on Jordanian host communities. So in addition to the bilateral assistance, we've also provided about $680 million of assistance to Syrian refugees in Jordan. We're the single largest donor, as you might expect, to the international organizations, to UNHCR and UNICEF and World Food Program. And when World Food Program was in danger of not being funded, we have more than once stepped up to ensure that it continues to provide Syrian refugees with a very basic food subsidy. But as for the future, I absolutely am positive that the United States will continue to stand by Jordan during this crisis. You know, our commitment to Jordan is bipartisan and rock solid.
في هذا الجانب يعني أنت سفيرة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية إلى الأردن، ونحن نعتبرك سفيرة للأردن لدى المجتمع الدولي. ما هي الرسالة التي تقدمينها للمجتمع الدولي خصوصا فيما يتعلق بضرورة مساعدة الأردن فيما يتعلق بمسألة اللاجئين التي أنت تتلمسيها بأكثر من زيارة إلى مخيمات اللجوء؟
No, our message to the international community is that more needs to be done. I have had the opportunity to travel around particularly the northern provinces, and just a few days ago I was in Mafraq and met with the mayor and heard him to describe, you know, just how challenging it is to have a population that's 50% Jordanian and 50% Syrian refugee. You know, I've seen firsthand the strain that's been placed on the schools, which are double shifted. I've seen the effect on water and electricity, which have gone up as much as 40% in some of the northern cities. And the fact that sanitation and waste management is simply beyond the reach of so many municipal councils when their population has increased so substantially. And over time this takes a toll, and I think it's extraordinary that the Jordanian people have been so welcoming and so generous, you know, despite this very real burden that's been placed on them. So the United States does encourage other donors to step up, to be generous. I think in the wake of the European refugee crisis, we were able to appreciate once again just how much of a burden Jordan lifted as an upper middle income country without the resources of the European countries who are currently encountering this refugee influx. So the United States message is that more needs to be done on a sustained basis to assist Jordan in responding to what is a multi-pronged challenge to its economy and infrastructure.
صحيح، هذا ما نأمله، لكن أيضا بسبب التطورات الإقليمية، وتعرفين أن رأس المال جبان يعني يحاول يبحث عن المكان الآمن في هذا الجانب، ونأمل أن تهدأ الأمور قريبا في سوريا والعراق، وحتى تكون هناك فرصة لقطاع الأعمال والقطاع الخاص أنه يلاقي فرص في هذه الدول في مشاريع إعادة الإعمار. في هذا الجانب ما هي الرسالة التي توجهينها للمستثمر الأمريكي بالذات؟
My message to the U.S. investor is that, you know, Jordan is a force for stability and modernization in the region, and that when you bet on Jordan, you're betting on the future of the Middle East, and you're betting on the kind of future we want to see in the Middle East. You know, President Obama repeatedly has said that Jordan is our invaluable ally, that we value this historic partnership, and this is a relationship that's vital to confronting many regional challenges, including Daesh. And so I would say to investors who are coming to Jordan that they need to know that the United States is fully committed to Jordan's security, period. And part of ensuring Jordan's security is helping it with economic growth and modernization, because economic growth, you know, is the best bulwark we have against radicalism and extremism. And I don't want to suggest that everybody who goes and joins Daesh is poor or unemployed. That's obviously not the case. But clearly, poverty, unemployment, lack of aspirations are key factors in driving people to make, you know, what is a profoundly wrong decision, you know, to turn to violent extremism. You know, I'm struck. You know, I'm struck almost every day by how Jordan differs and how Jordan represents this very moderate and modernizing form of Islam. And it's particularly true during the holiday period. I mean, here we are in Jordan with a minority population, you know, tightly integrated with the majority population, Christmas trees, you know, lit everywhere throughout the country. Where the Pope can visit, where Iraqi Christian refugees are welcomed and housed, where His Majesty meets regularly during the holiday season with the Christian community. I mean, this is an example for the region, and it's a reminder of why Jordan enjoys such support. I think another reason Jordan enjoys such support is that despite the chaos, despite all of the instability, this government is committed to a trajectory of reform, both political and economic. And the fact that the government has the self-confidence to experiment, politically, to undertake electoral law reform, to talk about decentralization, sends a very strong signal to the investor community that Jordan knows what it's doing, has its own game plan, and is not intimidated by the events in the region. And again, American firms are responding. I mean, to circle back where we started, they're here, they're investing. Just 2 weeks ago, I believe, I had a Fortune 100 American firm send a very large, very senior team here to scope out business in Jordan because they see the future. And so my message is, Jordan is where you want to be. Jordan is a portal to a region, that will only expand in the future. So the time to invest in Jordan is now.
إذن هي فعلا الفرصة، لكن فيما يتعلق بمكافحة الفقر والبطالة وهي واحدة من الأمور اللي ذكرتيها، يعني هل في هناك ممكن تكون برامج خاصة تستهدف التخفيف من حدة الفقر والبطالة في المملكة بالتعاون بين الحكومة الأمريكية والحكومة الأردنية؟
I think our approach to poverty and unemployment, which are critical challenges, is to try to help the government of Jordan ensure that its graduates have the skills they need to join a marketplace that's increasingly global. And so there are two strands to the strategy. On the one hand, we want to help improve the education system and ensure that it maintains its cutting edge. And the second, we want to develop the private sector. So when it comes to education, we believe that human capital is Jordan's most precious natural resource. Its talent pool has been renowned. Jordanians have staffed the Gulf and have built many of their neighboring countries. And so we have long been invested in education, $500 million since 2003, another $500 million of investment planned over the next 5 years. Part of that is physical upgrades. I mean, Jordan has a shortage of schools due to both the Syrian refugees as well as the Jordanian birth rate. And I had hoped that Michelle Obama would be here a few months ago to personally announce the latest contribution of $100 million to build 25 new schools and renovate and expand hundreds more. But it's not just about physical upgrades, it's about ensuring the quality of the education that students receive. And so we work very closely with the ministry in identifying, for instance, the need to enhance basic skills in the very early grades. So there's a program that's starting in 2016 that is going to provide training to every single K2 to 3rd grade teacher in the public school system so that they can help lift the reading and math scores of Jordanian students.
سعادة السفيرة، نشكرك كثير على الوقت اللي أتحتيه لنا، لكن هل هناك رسالة أخيرة توجهيها لكل من يسمعك عبر شاشة التلفزيون الأردني؟
I think, I would just want to stress, what a privilege it is to serve as the U.S. ambassador to Jordan. This is one of our most important relationships in the region. My government, counts on me and my mission to be able to inform them about the challenges that Jordanians face. I have the tools here at the mission through USAID, through our military assistance office, through our economic sections and foreign commercial sections to really try to tell the story of Jordan. And, and when I travel around the country and when I meet with people, when I meet with political leaders and parliamentarians, it's so that I can better understand exactly what that story is. What challenges do you face? Because we want to be able to explain to Congress and explain to the American people why their investment in Jordan, is both justified and going to pay off in greater stability in the Middle East writ large.
سعادة السفيرة، شكرا جزيلا على الوقت الذي منحتينا إياه، ونأمل أن نلقاك في حلقات مقبلة. أعزائي المشاهدين، لا يسعنا في نهاية حلقتنا لهذه الليلة إلا أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل من سعادة السفيرة أليس ويلز، سفيرة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية لدى المملكة. أعزائي، لأن نلتقيكم في حلقة مقبلة. نستودعكم الله، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.